Of all the teams to break into the playoffs this season, the Montreal Canadiens were maybe the biggest surprise. It was a huge leap forward for the league's second youngest team, in a season that saw pretty much all the major things going right. The success of the season sparked a realization. They don't need to rebuild anymore. They had 2 first-round picks this year, still expecting to need to build on their prospect pool, and they moved them away, because this is a team that can win now. They're still waiting on their young players to graduate to the NHL, but for the most part, the rebuild is over. Now, it's time to take another step. So today, let's take a look at how Montreal accelerated their rebuild, how this incredible past season and off-season can serve as the turning point for their future, and what we can project for them next season with a stronger roster in place. The biggest story of this season was a little defenseman. Lane Hutson had been one of the most popular prospects among online scouts for years, with lots of debate over his value and his translatability to the NHL. After a solid 2-game cameo at the end of last season, Hutson was set to make his full-time NHL debut and have his strengths and flaws put to the test on one of the league's biggest stages. Any expectations even the scouts most high on Hutson had were blown out of the water. The rookie who started the season as a part of the second power play unit took over as the PP1 quarterback, became the top defenseman on a playoff team, and won the Calder Trophy over the likes of Macklin Celebrini and Matvei Michkov. He had the 3rd most points on the Habs, joint 6th most among defensemen in the league, and tied the record for most assists as a rookie defenseman in NHL history. This 5'10 defenseman, who had some question marks about sticking in the NHL for the full season, became one of the most valuable players to Montreal. His floor is an offensive top 4 defenseman on a team's top power play. His ceiling is Montreal's version of Quinn Hughes. By the end of the season, Hutson wasn't even the most exciting narrative on the Habs. He'd pretty much already locked up the Calder with games to spare, and ahead of their playoff run, fans were looking to Russia to see if they could get some more help. Ivan Demidov was announced to have signed his entry-level deal on April 8th, and 6 days later, he was in the lineup against the Chicago Blackhawks. To say he started strong would be an understatement. No doubt it wasn't easy to play a full KHL season plus playoffs, then go to play North American League hockey for the first time. But like Hutson before him, Demidov was impressive in his 2-game cameo. Unlike Hutson, the season wasn't done, because the Habs then had the playoffs to focus on. Demidov didn't pop in the playoffs like he had in the regular season, but still ended up registering his first 2 postseason points, while taking much of his shifts with the 3rd and 4th lines. Demidov goes into the 2025-26 season as the clear-cut Calder favorite, giving the Habs the strong possibility of earning their 2nd consecutive Calder Trophy winner. This would come after not having one in the organization for 53 years. There's also no franchise that managed back-to-back winners for the trophy since 1968. Whether or not he wins it, he's expected to be an immediate impact forward next year, probably getting top 6 minutes. Just the fact that him winning the Calder is even a possibility after another Hab won it last year speaks to the incredible talent this iteration of the franchise has. Bringing in this talent wouldn't be possible without some great drafting and development. They have a great management team in place, and it seems a great coach to help them improve at the professional level. But coming away from a rebuild successful hinges on the drafting, and the Habs have hit there largely through simply making the obvious choice. Ivan Demidov was so highly touted that many had him ranked 2nd in his draft class. He was still available at the 5th overall pick, so the Habs took him. Lane Hutson was identified by online scouts as someone with the potential to be a huge steal, considering how teams value size in defensemen and his incredible rates of production in his draft year. Even the Habs passed him over 3 times, but all that matters now is that they've got him. Even going back to drafting Caufield in 2019, it was the same thing. Size was a concern, but he was breaking US National Development Team program records, clearly too talented to still be available at the 15th overall pick. Especially now, these picks look obvious, but clearly they weren't to every other franchise, and the Habs capitalizing on that has been crucial to their success. It's not all just quote-unquote easy picks that have gotten the Habs set up with the squad they have today. They've done pretty well with later picks, even if those guys aren't likely to be considered part of their core going forward. Jacob Fowler, their potential backup goalie of the future, was a 2020 5th-round pick. Joshua Waugh was a 5th the following year, a potential middle six forward of the future who's already played 35 games for the Habs at just 21 years old. There's even some hype around this year's 4th-rounder, LJ Mooney, who could be another case of a small skater who's talented enough to make it in the league. These players don't project as superstars, but if the Habs can find these types of guys every year, they'll never have a problem filling out their roster, or even will have plenty of options to flip for additional assets. They've done this in finding guys like Caden Primo and Jordan Harris long ago. While another GM was in charge of drafting them, Kent Hughes used Primo to get a 7th back, the same round he was drafted in, and Harris was a piece in acquiring Patrick Laine. Identifying these guys falls to the front office management, but developing them properly into NHLers is what really matters. The development side falls more to head coach Martin St. Louis. St. Louis was brought on as interim head coach in February of 2022, made permanent head coach in June of 2022, and extended in 2024. Safe to say the Canadiens organization has trust in him. St. Louis has been consistently making the team better, with the Habs improving year over year since he's been in charge. Even more important to a rebuild, he's been making the team's stars better. Nick Suzuki has gone from a 60-point player to an 85-plus point player under St. Louis. Cole Caufield was finally able to break through the 30-goal barrier and scored 70 points this past season. Even with someone like Lane Hutson, who knows how good he would have been if not for the guidance of a coach who had similar types of challenges as a player. Martin St. Louis is the perfect coach for this rebuild to help shape the stars of the future. As the team moves towards serious contention, it'll be tested whether he's a coach you just keep around for the rebuild or whether he's the real deal guy that can be in charge of a championship roster. Management has built the Montreal Canadiens into a team with all the necessary tools. They've got their 1C, they've got their first-line wingers. They've got their 1D, all of this so long as they continue at the levels they're already playing at. There are still gaps in the team though, still areas where they need to improve upon and usher in the right talent for filling the positional needs of the future. One of those needs was on the right side of the defense. The Habs did draft David Reinbacher 5th overall in 2023, but defensemen take a long time to develop and are less projectable. An injury this season could prove to be a huge setback, and even before that, many projected him more as a top 4 defenseman, not necessarily a top guy. Reinbacher's still slated to be an important part of Montreal's future, but when they have the opportunity to bolster their right side even further, they might as well take it. Noah Dobson is a 25-year-old 6'4" defenseman who had 70 points just 1 season ago. Those types of players are rarely ever available, and Montreal was able to pick one up without giving up any key pieces of their future. Dobson's obviously not perfect, or the Islanders wouldn't have given him up. His production dropped from 70 points to 39 points last year, and there are concerns about his defensive consistency. But it looks more likely that the down year for Dobson's scoring is the outlier, and advanced metrics will tell you he's a good defender. He should have more support in Montreal as well, with some of the tougher assignments being shared by Hutson, and hopefully Reinbacher eventually when he makes the jump to the NHL. The Habs locked him up for the next 8 years upon acquiring him, so they clearly believe in what he can do now. And with that, they have a largely complete defensive core, built mostly around young players that will soon be coming into their prime years. Offensively, they have lots of the key slots filled already as well. Probably their most glaring need is for their second top 6 center to back Nick Suzuki. Kirby Dach was the initial target for that spot back in 2022, but that's looking less and less likely to stick as a viable long-term solution. That's still a need to fill, but they got something else done after the Dobson deal. Once one right D came in, another could go out in service of improving the team's forwards. Montreal acquired Zach Bolduc, a Quebec native who had an underrated rookie season. He finished joint 4th in rookie goal scoring, and is one of few rookies to actually play an important role on a playoff team. Bolduc is listed as a center, but played wing all season. It's not impossible that he could help solve the 2C problem going forward, but more than likely he slots in as a more middle to bottom 6 winger. Still, it's a young player with an archetype the Habs need, and he fits perfectly with the team's timeline going forward. At this point, it's clear that the Habs feel they're ready to contend. Some may see it as a bit of a fluke that they made the playoffs last year, but Montreal obviously doesn't see it the same way. They drafted in the top 5 just last year, and yet now they're already moving away from significant futures and acquiring pieces to make the team better now. Whatever outsiders may think, the Montreal Canadiens think they're ready to go. They're not a flawless team by any means, and odds makers still see it as more likely than not that they miss the playoffs next year. But the rebuild in Montreal is over, and they're going to do everything they can to move towards contending in the years to come. It's not to say young players and prospects aren't still important to them. They may still be the most important part, as this team is truly in a youth revolution. A playoff team from last year is set to be the youngest team in the league, while coached by a young first-time head coach and managed by a first-time GM. They still have a very highly rated prospect pool that will see players graduating to the NHL in future seasons. It's more players on ELCs to help the team, or more assets to flip in service of finding other needs. Whatever the case, it's hard to deny that there aren't many organizations in a better position across the league than the Montreal Canadiens. The Habs are building something truly special, and the exciting part is, they're only really just getting started.